All right. Welcome in, everyone, to our deep dive on All the Light We Cannot See.
It's a Pulitzer Prize winner, and it's set during World War II, right?
Yeah, and I think it'll be fun to go through this one almost like an audiobook.
Oh,
But
okay.
we'll weave in some insights as we go, so it's not just a straight reading.
I like that. So where do we begin?
Well, we have two main characters, right? Marie-Laure LeBlanc and Werner Fennig.
A French girl and a German boy.
That's right. And their lives they unfold against this backdrop of war-torn Europe.
And their paths eventually intertwine.
Okay, so let's start with Marie-Laure. The story opens in 1939 Paris,
She lives with her father, Daniel, who works at the Museum of Natural History.
which is pretty cool in itself.
It is. But what's fascinating is that he creates this miniature model of their neighborhood for her.
Oh, why is that?
Well, Marie-Laure is blind, and this model allows her to navigate the city, to build a mental map.
That's amazing. So even though she can't physically see, she has this incredible understanding of her surroundings.
Precisely. But as the war escalates, their lives change dramatically.
Of course.
They're forced to flee Paris because of the German occupation.
Where do they go?
They end up in Saint-Malo, a coastal town, and they live with Marie-Laure's great-uncle, Etienne.
So Saint-Malo becomes their sanctuary.
You could say that, yes, the old walled city, the hidden passages, it all plays a big part in the story.
It sounds like the setting itself is almost a character.
Definitely. And there's also this mystery surrounding a valuable jewel called the Sea of Flames.
What's that about?
Well, it was entrusted to Daniel, Marie-Laure's father, but we don't know if it's the real diamond or just a copy.
Interesting. Okay, so now let's meet Werner, right?
Yeah, he's introduced in Chapter 3.
And where do we find him?
We first meet him in 1934, so a few years earlier, living in a German orphanage with his younger sister, Gita.
An orphan, huh?
And he has this incredible talent for fixing things, especially radios, which were a big deal back then.
Yeah, back then a radio was like high technology.
Exactly. And one day, he finds a discarded radio and teaches himself to repair it.
Pretty impressive, especially for a kid.
But this talent becomes a double-edged sword for him.
How so?
Well, the Nazi Party is gaining power, and they're looking for skilled individuals.
And they notice him.
At 14, he's recruited into a special training school. They promise him a better future.
But is it all that it seems?
Well, his sister, Judah, is suspicious.
She doesn't trust the Nazis.
Not one bit. She sees the darkness behind their promises.
It's interesting how they have such different perspectives on this opportunity.
It reflects the dilemmas of that time. Some saw opportunity, others saw danger.
So what happens to Werner at this school?
He excels, but he also faces the harsh realities of the Nazi regime.
What do you mean?
He witnesses brutality, cruelty, things that challenge his naive view of the world.
Can you give me an example?
A close friend of his is beaten severely, suffers brain damage, just for questioning authority.
That's awful.
It shows the dark side of that system.
So even though he's gifted, he's exposed to this horrible underbelly.
Exactly, and it creates this inner conflict within him.
And this all leads up to Chapter 9, where he's sent to the front lines, right?
Right, he's only 16, but they falsify his age.
Wow, they didn't even hesitate to send children to war?
And his job is to track down civilians who are using illegal radios.
So they're using his talent against the resistance?
That's the irony of it, and it weighs heavily on his conscience.
And he actually witnesses a terrible act, doesn't he?
In one scene, he sees a fellow soldier kill a woman and her young child simply because they had a radio.
That's horrifying. That must have been a turning point for him.
It forces him to confront the true cost of war, the dehumanizing effects of what he's doing.
It sounds like this is just the beginning of Werner's journey.
Oh, there's much more to come. All right, so as we move into these middle chapters of All the Light We Cannot See, we're going to start seeing how Marie-Laure and Werner's paths start to come together.
Okay, so we left off with Werner, really grappling with what he's doing in the war.
Right, by chapter 12, his unit is actually stationed in Saint-Malo.
Oh, wow, the same town where Marie-Laure and Etienne are living.
Exactly. And remember, Etienne has that hidden radio transmitter in his attic.
Oh, right. He's using it for resistance activities.
And Werner, well, he's trying to find the source of those transmissions. He's drawn to the challenge.
I could see that. It's like a cat and mouse game almost.
And as he's listening, he starts to realize something. He recognizes the voice on the radio.
Really? What do you mean?
It's the same voice he was captivated by as a child, the one that sparked his love for science and radio.
Wait a minute, you're telling me the voice broadcasting those secret codes is the same one that inspired Werner years ago?
That's the incredible twist. It's like fate brought them together in this strange way.
Wow, that's amazing. So he's trying to hunt down this voice that actually had a positive impact on his life.
And to make things even more interesting, he actually sees Marie-Laure at one point, the girl behind the voice.
So he's finally put a face to the voice he's been hearing.
Yeah, but things take a dramatic turn when the Allied forces start bombing Saint-Malo in August 1944.
Oh man, everyone's in danger now.
Absolutely. The city descends into chaos, and both Marie-Laure and Werner are in serious trouble.
What happens to them?
Well, Werner ends up trapped in a cellar after a building collapses.
He's injured.
Yeah, and disoriented, struggling to survive in the rubble.
And what about Marie-Laure?
She's alone in Etienne's house with the radio transmitter and the sea of flames.
Right, the diamond.
And remember von Rumpel, that Nazi officer obsessed with finding it?
Oh yeah, he thought it held the key to immortality or something.
Well, he sees the bombing as his chance to grab it. He's closing in on Marie-Laure while she's hiding.
So we've got Werner underground, Marie-Laure trapped in the house, and this Nazi on the loose. This is intense.
It is. And amidst all this, Marie-Laure starts using the radio to send out coded messages.
Hoping someone will hear her.
But what she doesn't know is that those messages are reaching Werner in the cellar.
Oh wow, so even though they're apart, they're connected by the radio.
It's like an invisible thread linking them together.
So what does Werner do?
He hears those messages, and it gives him a purpose. He manages to escape the rubble, and he knows he has to find Marie-Laure.
To warn her about the Nazi.
But here's the thing. Von Rumpel thinks Werner is after the diamond, too.
So they're both heading to the house. Oh man, this is going to be a showdown.
And it is. Werner bursts in just as von Rumpel is threatening Marie-Laure. It's a split-second decision. Werner shoots and kills von Rumpel.
Wow, you saved her life.
But they still have to escape the city. It's a dangerous journey through burning streets, dodging debris and enemy fire.
And what about the diamond?
Marie-Laure decides to hide it in a secret grotto.
She doesn't take it with her.
No, she gives the key to Werner. It's like a symbol of their bond.
That's pretty powerful. A reminder that even in war, these connections can form.
But their paths diverge after that. Marie-Laure eventually finds safety and reunites with Etienne in Paris.
Does she ever go back for the diamond?
We don't know. The book leaves that open. But she builds a new life, pursues science.
And what about Werner?
His story ends tragically. He dies a few months later, a victim of the war.
It's like their connection was a bright spark in the darkness, but then it was extinguished.
But there's one last piece. Years later, Werner's possessions reach his sister, Jetta.
Oh wow, what happens then?
She follows the clues he left behind, and it leads her to Marie-Laure.
That's incredible after all those years.
It's a bittersweet reunion, a reminder that even in loss, those connections can echo through time.
It's like a final note of hope, even though so much was lost. So we've walked through all the light we cannot see, and I have to say, I'm still processing Werner and Marie-Laure's stories.
It's a powerful book, for sure. One of the things that really stood out to me was that contrast between innocence and experience.
Yeah, how so?
Well, you see it with Marie-Laure. Despite her blindness, she experiences the world with this wonder. She's kind of sheltered for a while.
Right, especially at the beginning.
And that lets her hold on to a certain innocence, whereas Werner is thrown into the horrors of war so young.
And that forces him to grow up fast.
He has to face those tough questions about good and evil, right and wrong.
It's almost like their journeys reflect the themes of the book. Loss of innocence, survival, finding meaning in chaos.
Absolutely. And Dewar doesn't sugarcoat the horrors of war at all.
No, he shows the impact on everyone, individuals, families, even whole communities.
That bombing of Saint-Malo, that scene is so vivid.
I know, you can practically feel the heat and the terror of everyone trapped there.
It's a reminder that war doesn't discriminate. It doesn't care who you are or what you believe.
It just destroys everything in his path.
But even with all that destruction, Dewar still shows us that human resilience,
Yeah, like those little moments of kindness and compassion.
Marie-Laure's determination, Werner's struggle with his conscience, it all speaks to hope.
And what about the symbolism in the book, like the sea of flames? What do you think that represents?
It's more than just a jewel, right? It's about desire, obsession, this pull towards the unknown.
Yeah, it drives the whole plot forward.
And the way each character reacts to it tells you so much about them.
Like von Rumpel wanting it for immortality.
Exactly. But for Marie-Laure and Werner, it becomes this symbol of their connection, a flicker of light in the darkness.
And that connection, that light, maybe that's really what the book is all about.
I think you're right. It's about the power of human connection, empathy, finding beauty even in the face of terrible things.
Well, I think we've got a pretty good job exploring all the light we cannot see.
We've covered a lot of ground.
I hope our listeners are intrigued and maybe they'll pick up the book themselves.
It's definitely a story that stays with you.
And with that, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.